share that much climate science tonight. But I'm going to share what's come to me from a more heartfelt space. And I hope speaks to you all. Before every talk I make, I draw this symbol. Amigo. It's the yin-yang symbol. Thank you all for coming here and caring enough to come here. And I assume that because you came, that you care. And my presentation tonight is about caring. So while we all care, I think it's a matter of degree of how much we care. And that our care has the right ingredients. That it's not a superficial kind of care, that it's not just a feeling, but that it's embodied, and that it's grounded enough, and that it's fierce enough. This symbol is perennial wisdom for the balance of life, the dark and the light, the good and the bad, the painful and the pleasurable. And it's also a symbol of care. And I want to propose tonight that our care needs a lot of what's on this side of the circle. This is the dark side of the circle. I want to propose that climate crisis is our own shadow. And I want to point out a myth that I see, a meme that's in the common parlance of fighting climate change and combating climate change. That makes climate and nature the enemy. When we embrace holism and the holistic medicine that I practice, we understand that human beings are inextricably intertwined with the natural world. And because human beings are causing climate crisis, we need to take a deep look at ourselves. And when we think about solutions, we also have to think about the solutions. Why did this mic just change? Is that okay? Is that okay?
It's better.
It's better? Okay, good. Strange. We also have to think about the solutions that are inside of us. And I want to propose that 3/4 of the battle to take an action that inconveniences you or that is a sacrifice for your life exists between your deep heart and the superficie of your body that allows you to take the first step into life. I mention this because I want you to join Extinction Rebellion. And it's an illusion that we have a choice not to do this. It's an illusion that we have a choice not to do this. The funny thing about climate change is that everything about our evolution, the structure of our brains, the way we think, the way we operate, the way we've been evolutionarily geared to survive, puts us at a tremendous disadvantage to apprehend, to act upon, and to take our predicament seriously. Since hunter-gatherer times, we've evolved to pay attention to and to respond to and to react to what's immediately in front of our eyes. We have to see it and we have to feel it. That's why it was so hard to convince people that cigarettes were killing them. And then the advertising changed for cigarettes. It became more in your face, it became more dramatic. So the social scientists and the climate scientists are discussing and have been discussing better ways to communicate this crisis so that it becomes as urgent as the cancer that could kill us. Our brains don't equate the microchemistry of the atmosphere to the deterioration of our world. So when our wildfires blaze and we evacuate, when tsunamis flow forth, when hurricanes rip across plains, we don't immediately associate that with what's happening in the atmosphere. And we don't immediately associate it with how we behave and how we do business on the planet. And that's to say that we have to work extra hard to remind ourselves that this is happening. So our tendency and our default is to forget about it, to ignore it, to be in denial about it. And that's easy and it's convenient for today, but it's not for tomorrow any more than smoking cigarettes day after day is not going to help you when you come down with emphysema or cancer. So, in educating myself about climate crisis, I realized that I had to read a lot of science and I had to pay attention to the bad news all the time. And even after thousands of hours of research, I forget about it. I live my day, and sometimes at the end of the day, I'll say, shit, climate crisis, I forgot all about it. So one of the principles of XR, Extinction Rebellion, is truth-telling. And truth-telling is the beginning of care, and it's the beginning of cure. Because without the truth, we don't know what the problem is. And as a physician, I have to know what the diagnosis is of my patient, and I have to get it right. With climate crisis, we also have to know the severity of the situation. And the situation is so dire, I won't use a lot of words to say it. As I speak, as we gather here tonight, wildfires are ripping across Siberia. How big are those fires? Millions of acres. Right now. There's, please let me finish, we'll take questions then. There's no end in sight. These fires are more than 20 times the size of the Mendocino complex fire that ripped through California last year, the largest fire in California history. Jair Bolsonaro down in Brazil, a lunatic, is intent on deforesting the Amazon in Brazil. He's taken away indigenous rights. He's giving free pass to miners and looters and loggers. The Amazon has long been known as the lungs of our planet. More than a quarter of the world's population, headline news last week, more than a quarter of the world's population is currently at extreme risk of running out of water. And it's already happening in places in India where the taps have gone dry, supplying water to thousands, if not millions of people. So, coming back to the issue of care and how to motivate deeply, and Kate spoke to this a little bit before, I want to say that from our deep hearts, from our care, and how to make that fierce enough, and how to make that powerful enough and comprehensive enough, we need to use all the tools that we have. And if we stay superficial about it, I don't think we have enough cayenne pepper in the soup. So to pay attention to the issue requires admitting that the issue exists. And a lot of people are in denial about climate crisis. And then there's the whole spectrum of the degree to which one is in denial. And that's a huge spectrum. And the denial, that the honesty and the truth-telling that we have to be on board with is extreme. In other words, we have to be urgently aware of the situation, not just superficially aware. And a little bit of knowledge, which most people have about climate crisis, is dangerous, because then you fill in the gaps. That's what our brains do. They fill in gaps so that we think we understand it. That's actually very dangerous, and it leads us into complacency and apathy. And it's not enough to just stay positive and to just speak about, miracles or scientific inventions and solutions that are going to come if we're not able and we're not motivated and we're not impassioned to actually implement them and to get behind them and to rally them. So my supplication, my plea to you tonight is to understand that there's a lot at stake here, and the magnanimity of our world requires our own magnanimity and comprehensive involvement in this. So if you're afraid, and if you're sad, and if you're despairing, if you're helpless, that's not the worst thing. These very emotions are natural, and they're sane, and they're a sane response to what's happening in our world. We are inextricably connected with the natural world. When it pains, when it hurts, it's natural to feel that, and it's natural to feel that terror. And we live in a culture that doesn't appreciate depth and emotional intelligence. And the beautiful thing about XR is that it's a community, and it's a container, and it's a support, so that you don't have to go through this alone. It allows us to get involved in the most direct and urgent way to stop the greatest crisis that humanity has ever faced, and that's what this is. So I mention this because I want you to get involved. And what stops a lot of people from getting involved is not even the fear, but it's the fear of the fear, like FDR said. Because once you apprehend it, it's not as bad as you thought, especially if you have support. So I say, instead of shrinking away from the terror and the despair and the difficulty of the situation, let's bolster our resources so that we can face reality and therefore cope with reality and therefore try to heal the interdynamic reality we have for the environment. When we turn despair, sadness, outrage, hopelessness into love and care and passion and community and empowerment and hope, that's transformation. and that's regeneration. That's to have a regenerative psyche. And I think that we need a regenerative psyche to interface with this, that's both yin and yang. We need a regenerative psyche so that we can take the toxic, destructive, maniacal elements of the world, of our government's dishonesty, and create something beautiful and amazing and triumphant. I'm just going to pause a second, let you sit with that, and I'm maybe just going to offer a couple closing words. So my last words are that climate crisis is an injunction. Either we pay attention and we get on board with our full selves, or we're going to perish. This is an opportunity of initiation, comprehensive initiation at every level of our being. And if we view it as a challenge to beauty and a challenge to be amazing people, then we can use the challenge of climate crisis not only to heal our relationship with the world, and especially the natural world, but we can use it to heal ourselves. And together, the healing of ourselves, the healing of our world, and the healing of our community and our social structures creates what Charles Eisenstein calls the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. So, I thank you for listening.